The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho's fable about following your dream. A sleepy summary. Tonight we are going somewhere warm and golden and far away. We are going to the sun-baked fields of Andalusia in the south of Spain, where the grass smells of earth and evening, and the sheep move slowly across the hillside like soft, drowsy clouds grazing the ground. We are going to follow a boy, a very ordinary, very young, very restless boy who has a dream and who does not yet understand what that dream is trying to tell him. His name is Santiago, and we meet him lying in an old ruined church, using his folded jacket as a pillow, his flock of sheep settled peacefully around him in the dark. The roof of the church has long since crumbled away, and through the broken stone walls a single sycamore tree has grown up, wild and unhurried, spreading its branches over the space where the altar once stood. Santiago is not uncomfortable here. He has been a shepherd long enough that sleeping on the ground feels natural to him, as easy as breathing, as quiet as the soft footfalls of his flock in the morning mist. He chose this life deliberately. His father, a farmer, had saved enough coins to send him to a seminary, dreaming that his son would become a priest, a man of learning and standing. But Santiago had asked something of his father that surprised the old man. He asked to travel. He asked to see the world. His father, after a long and thoughtful silence, handed him 3 gold coins and said something gently wise, that the people he had known who wanted to travel were the same people who could never be satisfied, who always needed something new over the horizon. But he gave the coins anyway because there was love in him, and because perhaps he remembered, very faintly, a dream of his own that he had once set aside. And so Santiago bought a flock of sheep and became a shepherd, and for 2 years he wandered the fields and hills of Andalusia, sleeping where the sky was open, learning the way a farmer's daughter in a nearby town would smile when she saw him coming, and deciding in the comfortable, half-dreaming way of someone who is mostly content that this gentle, wandering life might be enough. He read old books. He watched his sheep. He felt the sun on his face. He let his mind drift. But there is a dream that will not leave him alone. He has had it twice now, and tonight in the ruined church it finds him again. In the dream, a child comes to him among his flock, takes his hands, and transports him to the base of the Egyptian pyramids. There, in that place of ancient mystery and golden stone, the child tells him that he will find a treasure, a hidden treasure, buried right there at the foot of those enormous monuments. And then, just before the child says exactly where the treasure lies, Santiago wakes, every time, without fail. Just before the exact location is revealed, the dream dissolves, and he is left blinking at the pre-dawn sky with a feeling like something important slipping through his fingers like sand. In the morning, he decides to do something he has been meaning to do. He will visit an old woman in the nearby town of Tarifa, a woman people say can interpret dreams. He has been carrying this dream with him like a stone in his pocket, smooth and persistent, and now he wants to know what it means. The old woman, a gypsy woman with kind, clever eyes and rings on every finger, listens to his dream with great seriousness. She takes his hands. She is quiet for a long time, and then she tells him, with the simple directness of someone who has been reading dreams for many years, that he must go to Egypt. He must go to the pyramids. The treasure is real, she says. It is waiting for him there. Her fee for this interpretation, she adds, will be 1/10 of whatever he finds when he arrives. Santiago is skeptical. Gypsies are known for saying what people want to hear. He thanks her politely and steps back out into the bright streets of Tarifa, certain that he has just been told a pleasant fairy tale and nothing more. But the dream still sits with him, warm and insistent, like an ember that refuses to go out. In the main square of Tarifa, beneath the shade of a large old tree, Santiago sits down on a bench with one of his books, half reading, letting his mind wander. And then a very old man comes and sits beside him, an old man with a cape of white and gold, a strange staff in his hand, and eyes that are somehow both ancient and immediately present. He begins talking to Santiago as though they already know each other. He asks about the book Santiago is reading. He says the book is about the same thing that every book, every life, every story is always about, the search for one's personal legend. Santiago is not sure what a personal legend is. The old man explains it gently, slowly, the way you might explain the nature of starlight to a child at bedtime. A personal legend, he says, is the one thing that a person most wants to accomplish in their life. It is what you have always known, deep in your heart, that you were born to do. When you are young, the world makes it very clear to you. Everything conspires to help you. But as the years pass, a mysterious force begins to convince you that it will be impossible, and you abandon the dream. You settle. You convince yourself that what you have chosen instead is actually quite good enough, and after a while you even believe it. The old man's name, he tells Santiago, is Melchizedek. He is the king of Salem. Santiago does not quite believe this, but there is something about the old man, a solidity, a quietness, a sense of enormous patience that makes it impossible to dismiss him entirely. Melchizedek tells Santiago something important. The soul of the world is nourished by the happiness of people pursuing their personal legends. The universe, the whole great breathing, spinning, dreaming universe, wants you to succeed at becoming who you are meant to be. When you truly want something with your whole heart, the entire universe conspires to help you achieve it. This is not a promise lightly made. This is a law as real and constant as gravity. He tells Santiago to sell his sheep and go to Egypt. He tells him about omens, the small, quiet signs that the world scatters in your path when you are moving in the right direction, like breadcrumbs through a forest, if only you will pay attention. He gives Santiago 2 stones, a white one called Urim and a black one called Thummim, to help him read omens when he cannot decide between yes and no, between forward and back. And then slowly, the old man rises and walks away into the bright morning crowd, and Santiago blinks and looks down at the stones in his hand and understands that his life has just changed in some quiet, irreversible way. He sells his sheep. Of course he sells his sheep. You knew he would, didn't you? You felt it coming the way you feel rain before it falls, a kind of pressure in the air, a shift in the light. He sells them to a farmer he knows, pockets the money, and boards a boat across the Strait of Gibraltar to Tangier, in Africa, in Morocco, in a world he has never seen. And Tangier is nothing like Spain. Tangier is loud and bright and bewildering, a city that buzzes and shouts and smells of spice and leather and dust, full of languages Santiago cannot understand, full of streets that wind and double back on themselves like a dream within a dream. He steps off the boat feeling very small and very far from home, which is, of course, exactly where the story needs him to be. He finds a place to sit. A young man who speaks Spanish approaches him, friendly and easy, offering to help him find his way. Santiago, who is lonely and lost and relieved to hear his own language, trusts this young man, and this is his first real mistake, the kind that the world teaches you with swift and merciless precision. While showing Santiago the city, the young man maneuvers him through the busy marketplace, and in the jostle and noise, the young man vanishes, and with him vanishes every coin Santiago has, all the money from the sale of his sheep, his entire means of getting to the pyramids. Gone. He sits in the marketplace for a long time. Around him, the market roars on, indifferent, enormous. He is completely alone on a continent he doesn't know, with no money and no Spanish-speaking companions and no sheep to return to. He is, by any reasonable measure, lost. But here is what Santiago does. After sitting with his despair long enough to really feel it, after letting the tears come and the self-pity wash over him and then recede, he begins to look around. He begins to notice. He holds the stones Melchizedek gave him, he breathes, and he thinks slowly, stubbornly, with the particular determination of someone who has decided they are not yet ready to give up about what he still has. He has the stones. He has his jacket. He has the ability to work. He has, buried somewhere under the shock and the shame, the memory of the dream at the pyramids, glowing faintly like a distant lamp. He finds a crystal merchant, a heavyset, quiet man with a small shop on a hill, and he offers to clean the man's dusty crystal glasses in exchange for food. The merchant agrees, and Santiago gets to work. The crystal merchant is one of the most beautifully drawn characters in the story, and it is worth spending time with him the way you would spend time with a very good cup of tea, slowly, appreciatively, noticing the warmth. He is a good man, honest and kind, but he is also a man who has spent his whole life not following his dream. His dream has always been to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, to see the holy city before he dies, and he has told himself for decades that one day, when things are better, when business improves, when the time is right, he will go. He has never gone. He knows, somewhere deep and quiet inside himself, that he will never go. Because the dream has become the thing that gets him through the ordinary days, it is the lantern he carries, and he is afraid that if he reaches the destination, the lantern will go out, and then what will he have to carry through the dark? Santiago works in this shop for nearly a year. 1 month becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 stretches into something longer, softer, the way time passes when you are not counting it too carefully. He learns Arabic slowly and imperfectly, and then with more confidence. He has ideas for the shop. He suggests displaying the crystal pieces so that passers-by can see them from the street. He thinks of selling mint tea in the crystal glasses to attract customers. The merchant, cautious at first, agrees to try. Business improves. More customers climb the hill. The shop becomes something it has never quite been before, alive. But Santiago, even in this comfort, even in this quiet success, cannot quite settle. The dream of the pyramids has not left him. It still rises in his sleep sometimes, golden and patient, and he still feels the pull of it in his chest, like a compass needle swinging toward north. One day he tells the merchant that he is going to continue his journey to Egypt. The merchant is not surprised. He has seen this coming the way you see a ship disappearing over the horizon, gradual, inevitable, a little lonely to watch. The merchant tells Santiago something quietly devastating and quietly beautiful. He says that Santiago's dream has made his own life possible. That Santiago's presence, his energy, his willingness to try new things, these have brought more business and more life to this little shop on the hill than anything the merchant himself ever did. And he knows that Santiago must go because Santiago is the kind of person who still believes that a dream can be reached, and you cannot keep such a person forever in a crystal shop. But he also knows, with the gentle sadness of someone who has made peace with his own limitations, that he himself will never go to Mecca, not because he cannot afford it now, he could, easily, but because the dream has become too precious as a dream to risk as a reality. He would rather carry it forever than risk losing it. Santiago listens to this with great care, the way you listen to someone saying something that is very true and a little heartbreaking at the same time. He pockets his earnings, nearly double what he had when he arrived, and he thanks the merchant for everything, with the kind of gratitude that comes from the whole chest rather than just the mouth. And he walks back down the hill toward the city, toward Africa, toward the desert, toward his dream, feeling the weight of the merchant's unlived life on his shoulders like a gentle warning. He joins a caravan crossing the Sahara. Let yourself imagine this for a moment, a long line of camels and men and supplies moving slowly across the immensity of the desert, the sand stretching away in every direction like a golden ocean that has forgotten how to move. The sky above is enormous and very blue. The sun is absolute. At night the stars come out in numbers that people from cities can barely comprehend. The whole brilliant scatter of the Milky Way overhead, like something poured from a jar. The caravan leader is a practical man who understands the desert the way a sailor understands the sea, with respect, with attention, with the knowledge that it can kill you in 100 quiet ways if you are not paying close attention. He tells the travelers that the desert has its own laws. You must trust your camel. You must read the sky. You must listen to the silence, which is never entirely silent if you are truly listening. On this crossing, Santiago meets an Englishman. The Englishman is a scholar, a seeker, a man who has buried himself in books for years looking for the secrets of alchemy. He carries a library with him in the caravan, heavy, leather-bound volumes about the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life, about the language of the world, about the mysterious process by which base metals might be transformed into gold. He is, in his way, also following a personal legend, though he has been looking for it mostly in libraries rather than in the living, breathing world around him. Santiago and the Englishman become traveling companions of a sort, reading each other's worlds with curious, respectful interest. The Englishman lends Santiago his books. Santiago tries to read them, finds them dense and difficult, and comes to a conclusion that surprises the Englishman. Everything the books say, all of it, is already written in the world around them. The language of the world, the soul of the world, can be read in the flight of birds, in the movement of the sand, in the way a flame bends in the wind. Santiago is a natural reader of this language, even if he has no name for it. The Englishman, who has spent years reading about this language in books, has somehow not yet learned to actually speak it. They are very different, these two, and they recognize it, and they like each other anyway, which is one of the nicest things about people. The caravan stops at an oasis, a lush, green, improbable explosion of life in the middle of the desert, a place called Al-Fayoum. It must stop here, the caravan leader explains, because there is news of tribal warfare ahead. The desert tribes are fighting, and no caravan can safely cross until the situation becomes clearer. It may be days, it may be weeks. The travelers settle into the oasis with the acceptance of people who have learned that the desert always decides, and that patience is not a weakness but a form of intelligence. And it is here, in the oasis, beside a well in the late afternoon light, that Santiago sees a woman and understands, in a single moment of absolute clarity, that he is in love. Her name is Fatima. She comes to the well every day to fill her jars, moving through the afternoon light with a quietness and a composure that Santiago finds immediately, completely arresting. She wears a veil in the traditional way, but when she looks at him, her eyes are dark and completely present, like two deep wells of their own. They speak. She tells him about herself, that she is a woman of the desert, that the women of the desert know that their men will go away and return again and again, that this is the nature of the desert and the nature of love in a place where the horizon is always calling. She is not coy or playing at distance. She is simply completely herself, in the way of someone who has never needed to be otherwise. Santiago tells her that he loves her. He tells her plainly, without ornamentation or pretense, the way you say something that is so completely true that there is no other way to say it. He asks her to wait for him, to be his wife when he returns from the pyramids with his treasure. She tells him, with the calm certainty that is entirely hers, that if he is a man of the desert and a man who follows his dream, then she will wait. Because a woman who loves a man like that understands that loving him means letting him go find what he is looking for. She will be here, the desert will keep her, and if he comes back, he will come back whole, which is the only way she would want him. Santiago would like to stay, he would, very much. The oasis is beautiful and cool and green, and Fatima is beside the well every afternoon, and there is a version of this life, a settled, quiet, deeply lovely version, that he could choose right now and perhaps be happy in. He thinks about this. He genuinely considers it. But the dream of the pyramids does not stop simply because he has found someone to love. And here is something the book says slowly and gently that is worth listening to in the dark. When you love someone and they are pursuing their personal legend, the best thing you can do, perhaps the most loving thing, is not to hold them back. Real love, the kind that the soul of the world recognizes, does not ask people to abandon who they are. It expands. It includes the journey. It says, "Go and I will be here, and we will be more complete for what you discover out there than we would have been if you had simply stayed." Santiago goes. He does not want to. His heart pulls in two directions at once, and he is not entirely sure which pain is worse, the leaving or the dream that made him leave. But he goes because the omen tells him to, because the language of the world is still speaking, and because some part of him understands that to abandon his legend now would be to betray not just himself, but Fatima too, who loves him exactly because he is the kind of person who would not abandon his legend. Before he leaves the oasis, something extraordinary happens. Walking along the edge of the sand at dawn, restless and awake, Santiago watches the sky and sees two hawks fighting, turning and diving against the blue. And suddenly, in a way he cannot entirely explain, a way that is less thought than knowing, he sees a vision in their flight. He sees an army. He sees swords. He sees an attack on the oasis. He goes to the chieftains of the oasis and tells them. They listen because the desert has taught them to listen to things that cannot be explained in ordinary language. They prepare, they arm themselves, and that very night, just as Santiago saw in the vision, a raiding party attacks the oasis, and because they were prepared, the oasis survives. Santiago has read the soul of the world. He has spoken the language that the Englishman has been searching for in books. He has become, in some quiet and irreversible way, more than he was before. The chief gives him gold. He is celebrated. But there is another meeting, more important than the celebration, that happens in the desert night. An enormous black horse appears. On it rides a man dressed in black, whose face is half covered by a cloth and whose eyes are the color of the desert itself, ancient, alert, containing multitudes. This is the alchemist. He is not a myth. He is here in the desert, in the dark, on his horse, looking at Santiago with those extraordinary eyes. He tells Santiago that he knows about the treasure. He tells him that he will accompany him across the remaining desert to the pyramids. And he tells him something that Santiago does not entirely want to hear. The journey ahead is the most dangerous part. The alchemist is not a warm figure in the way of the crystal merchant or Melchizedek. He is precise and spare, the way the desert itself is precise and spare, nothing unnecessary, nothing soft, every word placed exactly where it is needed. He speaks to Santiago as a teacher speaks to a student who is capable of understanding difficult things and therefore deserves to be told them plainly. As they ride together through the deep desert, he teaches Santiago. He tells him about the soul of the world, which connects all things, which is the language underneath all languages, which the alchemists call the universal language or the language of the world. He tells him about the personal legend, which is not merely a goal but a form of communion with the divine, the expression of what God, or the universe, or the soul of the world intended when it dreamed you into being. To follow your personal legend is not selfishness, it is participation. It is your one irreplaceable contribution to the great story that everything is always telling. He tells Santiago that most people abandon their legends at the first real obstacle. Not because they are weak, but because they are afraid. Fear is the great thief of dreams, not the obvious dramatic fear of death or failure, but the quieter fears. The fear of losing what you already have, the fear of seeming foolish, the fear of the unknown, the fear that you are not quite worthy of the thing you want most. The alchemist says, with the gentleness of someone who has watched this particular tragedy repeat itself for centuries, you must fear the dream unlived more than you fear the journey toward it. He shows Santiago how to communicate with the desert, with the wind, with the sun. He explains that everything in the world has a soul, and that the soul of the world permeates all things, and that when you are truly aligned with your personal legend, you can feel this, a deep, humming resonance, like a note struck on a bell that continues to vibrate long after the initial sound has faded. He also, with characteristic directness, tells Santiago that he will not step in to protect him from everything that is coming. The world tests people who are close to finding their treasure. It tests them to see if they are truly ready to receive it. The tests are not punishments. They are preparations. They are the world's way of saying, "Are you sure?" And then, more insistently, "Are you really sure?" And the test comes. They are captured by a desert tribe, fighters in the ongoing territorial wars of the region, men who are suspicious of travelers and who carry their suspicion in their hands and in their eyes. Santiago and the alchemist are taken to the camp, and it quickly becomes clear that their situation is serious. The alchemist, with a calmness that Santiago finds both admirable and slightly alarming, immediately tells the tribal chief something outrageous. He tells him that his companion, this young Andalusian shepherd boy, is a powerful sorcerer who can transform himself into the wind. Santiago's heart drops. He cannot do this. He has never done anything like this. He looks at the alchemist with an expression that clearly communicates all of this, and the alchemist looks back with an expression that communicates, with equal clarity, "Yes, you can." The chief, amused or curious or both, gives Santiago 3 days to prove it, or they will both be executed. 3 days. Santiago has 3 days to become the wind. He spends those days sitting in the desert, in the enormous quiet of the sand and the sky, and he does what he has been learning slowly throughout this entire long journey to do. He listens. He speaks to the desert. He asks the desert, which is ancient and has seen everything, what it knows about love and transformation and the connection of all things. The desert speaks back, and what it says is this: "I cannot transform myself into the wind, but I know someone who can. Ask the wind." He speaks to the wind. He asks the wind about transformation, about love, about the force that moves through everything. The wind begins to speak, and what the wind says is, "I can blow and reshape the dunes, I can carry seeds across continents, I can change the world, but love is beyond me. For love, ask the sun." He looks up at the sun, blazing above the desert, ancient and patient and unreachable, the great burning engine of all life. He speaks to the sun, in the language that he has been learning to speak since the ruined church in Andalusia, since Melchizedek on the bench in Tarifa, since the flight of the hawks above the oasis. And the sun, which has watched everything since the beginning of time, says, "I know all about transformation. I warm the water until it becomes clouds. I dry the seeds until they crack and grow. But the power you are asking about, the deepest love and the deepest transformation, that is not mine either. For that you must go to the soul of the world, which lives inside you and inside everything, and which is the hand of God reaching through all created things." And Santiago understands. He turns inside. He finds the soul of the world in the silence at the center of himself, the same silence that is in the desert and the wind and the sun and the beating of his own heart. And he says, in that deepest language, what he needs to say. The wind picks up, slowly at first, then with gathering force. It builds into a storm that fills the sky with sand, that obliterates the horizon, that makes the warriors cover their faces and hold onto their horses and each other. And when the storm clears, Santiago is standing on the other side of the camp. He has crossed through the wind. He has become, for one impossible, perfect moment, part of everything. The tribal chief lets them go. He is afraid because he has seen something that does not fit inside the ordinary world of swords and horses and territorial disputes. Some of the warriors whisper that the boy is blessed by God. The alchemist says nothing, simply mounts his horse and rides, and Santiago rides beside him, shaking a little, full of something that feels like light. They ride on through the enormous quiet of the desert. The pyramids are close now. Santiago can feel it the way you feel the nearness of the sea before you see it, a change in the air, a sense of something vast and ancient drawing near. When they are nearly there, the alchemist stops. He has taken Santiago as far as he will take him. The rest of the journey, he says, Santiago must complete alone. This is always how it is with the last part. No one can accompany you all the way. The companion who got you here has done their part. Now it is between you and the world. He teaches Santiago one last thing, the alchemical secret. He takes a piece of lead, a handful of sulfur and mercury in the right proportions, builds a small fire, and in the fire, slowly, impossibly, in front of Santiago's eyes, the lead becomes gold, real gold. The philosopher's stone and the elixir of life, the two great goals of every alchemist who ever lived, are not myths. They are real. They are available to anyone who has completed their personal legend, who has learned to read the soul of the world, who has aligned themselves so completely with the great creative force of the universe that transformation of metal, of self, of everything becomes possible. The alchemist divides the gold into 4 portions. He gives one to the monk at a nearby monastery as a gift. He keeps one for himself. He gives one to Santiago. And he puts aside one for safekeeping, in case Santiago needs it on his return journey at the monastery. He says goodbye, and it is the kind of goodbye that contains an entire education in it, quiet, unhurried, complete. Santiago watches him ride back into the desert, growing smaller and smaller against the enormous sand, until the distance takes him entirely. The pyramids. Santiago stands before them at last. Let yourself imagine this. The boy from Andalusia, who slept in a ruined church with his sheep not so very long ago, who crossed a sea and lost everything in a marketplace, and spent a year selling crystal glasses, and traveled across the Sahara, and fell in love beside a desert well, and transformed himself into the wind. This boy stands at the foot of the great pyramids of Egypt, in the clear, golden, absolutely immense light of the African sun. And he is full of something so large and so complex that it has no single name. He begins to dig. The dream told him to dig here at the foot of the pyramids. He digs with his hands because he has no shovel. He digs in the sand, heaping it aside, going deeper, certain that any moment now he will feel the change in the ground that signals what he is looking for. He digs for a long time. He finds nothing. And then men appear, men who have been watching him, who have perhaps seen many strange travelers come to the desert and do strange things, and who are not inclined to let this strange thing continue without getting something from it. They beat him. They take the gold the alchemist gave him. They go through his things, and when they find nothing of real value, no treasure chest, no jewels, only the 2 stones from Melchizedek which they take him for worthless, they prepare to leave him there, bruised and empty-handed in the sand. But first the leader of the group, almost as an afterthought, tells Santiago why he knows there is no treasure here. He knows, he says, with the contemptuous authority of a man who has been right about everything, because he once had a dream about treasure himself. Twice he dreamed of a ruined church in Spain, somewhere in Andalusia, where a sycamore tree grew inside the walls, and beneath the roots of that tree was a great treasure buried. But he, unlike this foolish boy, was never stupid enough to actually go anywhere based on a dream. He stayed put. He was sensible. He was practical. He did not travel all the way across the world chasing something a dream told him. The men leave. Santiago lies in the sand for a moment, bruised and breathless and completely, totally, overwhelmingly understanding. The ruined church, the sycamore tree, Andalusia, where he started, where he slept with his sheep on the very first page of this story before any of it began. The treasure was there. The treasure was there all along, buried under the roots of the tree beside which he slept on the very night he first had the dream about the pyramids. It was at home. It was at the beginning. But here is the thing, and this is the thing the whole long story has been building toward, the thing that makes the tears come up in your chest even when you are sleepy and warm in the dark. Here is the thing. He could not have known where to dig if he had not made the journey. The man who dreamed of the Spanish church but never went could not find the treasure in Spain because he never knew what treasure felt like, what it cost, what it meant to follow a dream past every obstacle and every loss and every fear until you arrived at the place where the dream was pointing all along. You have to make the journey to understand the destination. You have to leave home to find what was waiting for you at home. The treasure is real, and it was always there, and you could never have recognized it without becoming the person you became by going looking for it. Santiago makes the long journey back. He travels back across the desert, back through the cities, back across the sea, back through the familiar landscape of Andalusia that looks both exactly the same and completely different. The way everything looks different when you come back to it changed. He goes to the ruined church. The sycamore tree stands where it has always stood, patient and enormous. The sheep are long gone, of course. He sold them long ago, in another life, in the life he was living before he knew about personal legends. But the tree remains. He begins to dig beneath its roots. The earth here is different from the desert sand, darker, cooler, more yielding. He digs steadily, carefully in the quiet of the night, with the stars overhead and the old stone walls of the church surrounding him in the soft dark. And there it is, a chest, old and heavy, wood banded with iron, buried deep enough that it would have taken more than a dream to find it without knowing where to look. He opens it, and inside are gold coins and jewels, the accumulated wealth of someone who hid it there long ago and never came back. Treasure in the old, literal sense of the word. Beautiful, impossible, real. He holds a handful of gold in his hand in the dark of the ruined church, in the place where the story began, and he is laughing and crying at the same time, which is a feeling you might know something about, that particular mixture of joy and grief and gratitude and exhaustion that arrives when something very long and very hard finally comes right. He looks out through the broken roof at the sky, at the enormous scatter of stars that he has been sleeping under for so long in Spain, in Morocco, in the Sahara, in the oasis, in the desert. The same stars everywhere, the same sky. The same universe that conspired to bring him here, that sent the old king on the bench in Tarifa, that arranged for a thief in Tangier, that placed a crystal merchant on a hill and a caravan crossing the desert, and a woman named Fatima beside a well and an alchemist on a black horse in the night, all of it, every single piece of it working together to bring him back to this church, to this tree, to this buried chest, to this armful of gold in the ancient quiet of Andalusia. He thinks of Fatima. He thinks of her eyes at the well, dark and present and full of patient love. He thinks of what she said, that if he was a man who followed his dream, she would wait, because she understood that loving someone like that means letting them find what they are looking for. He will go back to her. He will go to the oasis, to the desert, to the well where she fills her jars in the afternoon light, and he will find her there because she said she would be there, and she is not the kind of person who says things she does not mean. The wind lifts gently through the ruined church. The sycamore leaves move, something settles, something completes itself. And so the story ends where it began, and yet it has gone everywhere in between, and the boy who stands at the end of it is not the boy who slept here at the beginning of it, though he is standing in the same place, under the same stars, in the same ruined church. He is the same person made larger by everything he has survived and found and lost and loved. He is, in the deep sense that Melchizedek meant and that the alchemist taught and that Fatima embodied, a person who has found his treasure, not just the gold in the chest, but the knowing, the living, the becoming. The treasure was always twofold, the thing in the ground and the person you had to become to find it. The universe conspired to help him. It always does, for those who truly want something, who follow the omens, who stay awake to the language of the world, who endure the tests with their hearts open rather than their fists clenched. The crystal merchant who stayed behind and the shepherd boy who went forward both made their choices, and both choices are human and understandable, but only one of them leads to the pyramids and back again, to the treasure and the love and the stars and the wind and the extraordinary, ordinary miracle of a life fully lived. This is what the story says, in the quiet way of something told beside a fire at the end of a long day. Follow your heart. Read the omens. Trust the journey. Fear the dream unlived more than the difficult road toward it. And know that everything, every detour and delay and disaster and unexpected kindness is conspiring always to bring you exactly where you need to be. The wind blows through the ruins. The stars turn slowly overhead. The gold is warm in Santiago's hands. Fatima is waiting by the well. In the end, this sleepy summary, with its relaxing tone and warm glow, is not meant to replace something. It is meant to point toward a much larger light. It is offered with care and with the genuine hope that something in tonight's listening finds its way into you as an invitation. The whole book is waiting. The real depth lives there, in every word they chose and every story they told and every quiet idea they let breathe across a full page. Let this be the beginning of something you carry forward in the light of an ordinary tomorrow, and if this lamp has helped you in some way, a light keeps it burning for someone else who might need it too. Sleep now. The desert is quiet. The journey is complete.